multiplication and division of real numbers. In this video, I'm going to concentrate on division. Perhaps it makes sense that division can be written in terms of multiplication. Why would that make sense? Well, remember we used addition to write subtraction. So how would you write 12 divided by 3? If I said 12 divided by 3. Well, you might start by saying, well, it's 3 divided into 12, but we're not actually going to do the division. We're going to write this perhaps as 12 divided by 3. All right, this is okay. The 3 into 12, we know we'd get 4. All right. But for our discussion, we're going to say 12 is divided by 3. Sometimes you might think of that in terms of 12 divided by 3. Now this 12, if I write it as a fraction in this way, an improper fraction, I can split this out and I can say, well, that's 12 over 1 multiplied by 1 over 3. Notice I took the numerator, put it over 1, and the denominator, kept it in the denominator with a 1 on top. Now if you multiplied these two fractions, remember multiplication, we just simply multiply straight across. 12 times 1 would give us 12. Right? And 1 times 3, multiplying straight across. We don't need a common denominator because we're multiplying. These would be 1 times 3 over 3, which of course lands us back exactly where we started, which is a good thing, right? Because we're just writing it the same way. So this is 12 times 1/3. Well, 12 over 1 is the number 12. So I just said 12 times 1/3. Oh, well, that's the same thing as 12 divided by 3. Right, so these are the same. So I've taken division and written it as multiplication. In other words, A divided by some other number B is the same thing as A multiplied by 1 over B, or its reciprocal, sometimes called the multiplicative inverse. Right? A multiplicative inverse means that if I take B and multiply it by its inverse, multiplicative inverse, 1 over B, I'd get B over B, which is equal to 1. Now a fraction, any fraction, just a review here, a fraction has 3 places for a sign. So let me give you an example. If I have a fraction 1/2, I could say this is a positive 1/2 over a positive 2, or the fraction itself, 1/2, right, is equal to, this is a positive number, 1/2, so I could have put a positive here. And there are 3 places for me to put that plus sign, but I wouldn't put it there. We don't normally write the positive signs. But let's say I had something like minus 1/2. Notice that if I have A over B, let me give you an indication where these signs would go. Right in front of the A right in front of the b, or right in front of the division bar. Those are our three locations for signs. So right now, I actually have three signs in this -1/2. I have a positive, which we don't normally write, but I'm going to write it here just for emphasis. +1. In the division bar location, we have a negative, and with the 2, it's also positive. So there are always three signs showing up in a fraction. It just gets so messy, we tend only to put in the negative. So that means -1/2 is -1/2. Because I can change any two. I can change any two signs. And I will not change the fraction. Alright, so that means -1/2 is the same as -1/2, which is the same as 1 over -2. Why is that? Well, it goes back to writing division, 1 divided by 2. Right? It goes back to writing division as a multiplication. So let's go back to doing that. Let me give you an example. If I have 130 and I divide that by a -10. Well, we know that this is the same as writing it as a multiplication now, as the reciprocal or the multiplicative inverse of -10. So it would be 1 over -10. And 130 times this negative number now, -1/10, and you can see, go back and look, I changed this sign. Let me just underline it. I changed this sign to a positive, this +10, and I changed the sign that's here but not showing up, this little plus that's here, into a negative. Alright, so I changed two of the signs. I left the one alone. But what it gives me is a multiplication, and I have a positive number, 130, times a negative number, 1 over 10. So we know if they're different signs, I get a negative number. It's 130 multiplying across 130 times 1, and then of course this is in the 130 is in the numerator, so there's a 1 in the denominator times 10. I get -130 over 10, or -13. What's nice about this, changing division into multiplication, is the same rules apply with division. Let me write that out. Same sign rules apply with division. In other words, if I divide B into A, if A and B have the same sign, then my answer is positive. On the other hand, if A and B have different signs, then my answer is going to be negative. Simple, right? Let's look at one more example. Let's say I have -15 divided by 3. So I have a negative number, minus 15 divided by 3. Certainly 3 goes into 15 5 times, so I know my answer is 5, but is it positive or negative? Well, there are two ways of looking at this. I can take this minus, change the positive 15 to a minus 15, change the sign in front of the division bar to plus, and leave 3 plus as a plus 3. Now I have two different signs, and so clearly from what we just said, this is minus 15 times 1/3, so I'm multiplying by a positive and a negative, or dividing by a negative and a positive, so I'm going to get a negative answer. Another way to work with fractions is to say, well, this is minus this quantity, 15 over 3. Think of it that way. Now I have a positive 15 divided by a positive 3. The signs are the same, so I'm going to get a positive number. But minus these minus 5, these parentheses are not needed because there's nothing going on here with 5, so we get the same result, looking at it in two different ways.